everybody, and welcome on into Sidelines, presented by Visit Potter Tioga. I'm Drew Patrick. On today's episode, we review the PSAC Cross-Country Championships, plus we preview the women's basketball season upcoming. Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's talk cross-country as we had the PSAC Championships, and two individuals joining me now at the desk had some pretty good performances at the PSAC Championships. Aneisa Dodson, Carly Daniels, thank you so much for taking the time and stopping by.
Of course, thank you for having us.
So let's talk about it. Obviously, a top finish, a first-team All-PSAC performance for you, Aneisa. We talked a little bit right after the race, but what worked, what clicked for you?
So it was just really about staying aggressive. I knew that I could stay in the top pack. At first I got a little nervous, being more ambitious toward the beginning, but that's how you need to be during championships, because if you stay behind for too long, it's really hard to get back up to the beginning pack. So.
And hey, a great race for you as well, Carly. What did you see in your race?
I noticed, my plan was to stay in the top 40 for the majority of the race, and unfortunately when I went to make that move up into the top 30, it seemed like everyone also had the same idea as me. So it was there was just a lot of people also making that move then. But considering I came off an injury last semester, I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out.
And that course is not an easy course, and really it's kind of going in blind to the weekend for that course. And there's hills that you have to adapt to, which you don't really see a lot at a championship race. What do you have to do in your race plan, knowing that there are going to be a lot more hills than we're used to in a big race like this?
Yeah, Coach had told us to take the hills fairly easy within the first half of the race, because other people were going to go out stronger, and then come the second half, they're going to be tired going up the hills the rest of the way. And I think most of us followed that plan pretty well. I know in the second half, I was able to pass people going uphill just because I had stayed a little bit more reserved in the first half.
Yeah, I felt the same. So I stayed in the middle. I was a little bit aggressive in the beginning with the hills, but not completely sprinting up them. So I saw the same thing. A lot of people started to come back on the hills. They weren't able to be as strong, especially because towards the finish, there's that one little uphill that really just takes everything out of your body.
Oh, you had that little mound there right at the
Yeah.
end. So speaking of aggression, and it's a championship race, so it's going to go out quickly, and it's going to go out really fast. Just the nature of the beast there for those races. What do you have to do? And Carly, before the race, we had talked about how that was a game plan the last meet to try and counter that. But what did you see in that moment, in that very start of the race, and how to counter the very fast start you expect?
Yeah, we had planned to not go out as hard, because we knew that it was going to go out fast. But personally, I still got swept away in that moment. I mean, it's so hard when you're there and you feel so good at the beginning of the race because you're not tired quite yet, and it's so easy to just go with the pack. And I definitely took my first mile faster than I should have, and I paid a little bit of the price for that towards the end. But yeah, it's hard when you're in the moment.
Yeah, I feel the same. But my mile was pretty fast, but I did the same thing at Lock Haven. Sometimes you kind of fall back, usually between the second and third mile, but making sure you stay mentally tough and saying, hey, I can still do this. I've done workouts at this pace, and just really setting your mind to it is the key.
It's that adrenaline, though, right?
Yeah.
Plus, it felt like a longer wait before the start than normal, so maybe it's still churning more there.
Yeah.
That was, I get that.
Yeah.
Also, in this race, hey, the weather was, I know when I ran, I loved weather like that. How did you guys kind of gauge the weather there on? It was It was a nice, cool day, a little breeze, but not too bad. How did that affect your race at all?
Yeah, I didn't feel too affected by the weather because, like you said, it was a beautiful day. I mean, the sun was out, but it was windy, so it was like there's a nice breeze, so I wasn't overly hot or cold. Yeah, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect weather too, just to the point where you're like, your body is cool enough, but it's not like getting too hot, so you can like feel it overwhelming you during the race.
So looking forward, the good thing is all these teams you've seen at the PSAC Championship, you'll see again at the regional. Yes, there'll be a couple teams added, as you guys know, but what can you take away from this race and your performance in this race looking forward to the next one, the regional meet?
We had talked about after the Kutztown race for PSACs that our times were not very reflective of like our efforts because of the hills, and the course was also long. And coach told us to take, it was like a minute 30 maybe off of our times, and that was the time that we would have ran on an accurate distance and a flat course. So with that being said, I technically would have ran a PR if that was true. So I think going into Lock Haven on a flat course where the course is not longer, I'm looking for a PR going into the regional meet, knowing that it's flat. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it'll be a nice day for PRs, especially because we went there earlier in the season, so we know what the course is, and especially like the little spots that are like harder to get over and such.
Yeah, a lot of familiarity with that Lock Haven course over this calendar year, as that was the one meet you guys had to or got to do cross country earlier in last season, but this year, the craziness that was. That a point there that you made about that course, I guess apparently uphill doesn't count as distance. I guess on that course when you have to go straight up. But so then you mentioned the hills to the flat, that change. What goes into, does anything really go into that mindset of changing or like, hey, maybe I have to be more conscious of keeping up the pace, or is that something that happens more on a hilly course?
I'd say on a hilly course, it's like, personally, it's easy for me to get in my head when I know that there's going to be hills because I don't feel as confident with hills. So it's easy to look at a course like Kutztown and go into it thinking, oh God, this is going to be difficult or I'm going to struggle. And then once you're in that mindset, it's hard to like get through that. So going into a flat course, I feel more confident, definitely, with the way I'll be able to perform.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also, again, with making sure you don't go out fast because, you know, the only good thing about the hilly course is that you get that downhill and you kind of get that recovery. So with the flat courses, it's like if you go out the first mile and a half too fast, it's really easy to fade for the rest of the race.
I think that's such an underrated thing, too, that people don't really look at as much the mental aspect of your race. And so is there a way to improve on that or a way to practice the mental aspect of it? Or how do you go about strategizing that really unsung part of your race?
It's actually funny that you asked that because a couple nights ago they had Tony Collins here speaking and I actually went to that. And he was talking about your like thought train and your thought pattern, and the more that you positive self-talk, the more that's going to be reflected. And I think that's such an important part in cross country because you're in the race, and as soon as you have that negative thought like, oh, I'm doing poorly, your race is immediately going to start reflecting that. So definitely that like positive self-talk and knowing that you can do this and you've trained for this and worked how many months for it is very key when you're racing.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like with the Maryland meet, when like my shins were bothering me, that was one of the main aspects, but it was also because I fell apart mentally because I was so upset with how I was feeling and just everything I was seeing during the race just going back, further and further. So it's definitely a lot of positive self-talk, like she said, especially during workouts, even when it's not going well.
Yeah, it's like I said, and like you said, it's really a thing that people don't really think about. They see the physical. They don't think of the mental. They don't really gauge what you guys have to do mentally in that race. So we touched on it very briefly, but final thought here, what are your goals for this upcoming regional meet?
Definitely a PR for me, and I'd love to see our team do well. We performed well at PSAC, but But I know that our team has a lot of potential, and I think that we are definitely, well, hopefully we're going to all hit a good day on the same day, and we can all, like, really just go for it.
Yeah, I'm hoping for maybe top 15. We'll see. The top 5 finishers after the first team is taken out go to nationals. That's always the goal, go big or go home. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, come home with some more hardware. That's all. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time and stopping by.
And thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere. While this semester will look a little different, we're taking steps to promote a safe campus environment and to help us return to normal faster. You'll notice students and employees wearing face masks that cover their nose and mouth in order to keep you safe. We ask that you do the same to protect your fellow Mounties. Face masks are required inside all campus buildings and should be worn when visiting locations outside of campus as well. Mounties, we're all in this together.
It's all part of Mother Nature's perfect blend, the keystone of the Keystone State. Visit Potter Tioga, a 2-county scenic outdoor haven conveniently located, yet worlds apart. A place where you can kick back, unwind, and forget about the pressures of life. Disconnect and reconnect with your friends, family, or even yourself while surrounded by nature's beauty. So start planning your adventures today at visitpottertioga.com.
Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's continue to talk cross-country, as now joining me at the desk are members of the men's side of the cross-country team, David Wootten and Seth Neal. Thank you so much for taking the time and stopping by.
Yeah, no
Thank you
problem.
for having us.
So this past week, the PSAC Championships. Let's start with just overall. How do you feel your race went?
Personally, I was pretty satisfied with my race. It was a first real true championships experience as a collegiate runner, and it really, like, PSAC is a really tough conference that puts it into perspective there.
Yeah, kind of being in that freshman position, I thought it was a lot of fun to run at Kutztown because it was a lot of hills, and being from around here, it was kind of fun to have all those hills just to work off of.
I want to talk about those hills too, because I mean, a lot of championship races, you don't get a lot of hills. So how does that change a race plan for you guys when you expect there to be a lot of intermediate hills throughout that entire course?
Our race plan, it did change. It changed a lot within that 2-day period as soon as we started running the course for our pre-meet run there. It really was a lot more strenuous of hills than we thought originally. So that changed how you just sit and wait as long as possible and try to gauge the hills as easy and make them as easy as possible, especially in the beginning of the race where you have a higher chance of blowing up.
Yeah, that pre-meet was a really good time to gauge where you should start where you should kick, where you should work the hills, stuff like that.
And speaking of that start of the race, this race always goes out quickly. What did you guys have to do to try and not end up following the pack when they just take off? It's just the nature of a championship race that you will get the start being quicker. What do you have to do mentally to kind of counteract that?
Me personally, I really tried not worrying about positioning at all, because that's what it comes down to in a big race. Positioning is everything off the gun. That's why it goes off fast for position. I just did not worry about positioning. I was sitting 80s, 90s off the beginning, and we still went out fast, which I was fine with. I wasn't worried at all.
Yeah, kind of going, like, you can gauge yourself going out too fast and you'll know, but if you're sitting like 520s, 530s, you'll be okay because of it's late in the season. You've had that experience of running out fast.
So too, with this race, that's important is, and you guys are in your first year, your freshman year, knowing that a lot of these athletes you're going to see again, and we'll get to the regional meet here in a minute, but what can you take away from your first PSAC championship experience?
For me, it was really, I guess, humbling is a good way to put it. I mean, the PSAC, it's a really top tier conference in this region, and there's a lot of deep teams out there, and a lot of regionally ranked teams, and even there's a nationally ranked team. It really is a lot in that conference.
For me, it was just, I know what I can do now. Let's keep working on getting to being that first team or being on that second team.
So I don't know about you guys, but like the weather too was very nice. In terms of running weather, that's usually my forte, the weather that was. But how do you gauge that, and was that encouraging to you, or would you prefer something else?
Oh, that was perfect weather for me. That was perfect weather. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect weather for me too. I'm just used to running in that, so it just kind of worked out in my favor.
A little bit colder, a little wind. I love it. I used to love it. So now let's look ahead to the regional meet. For this week upcoming, obviously you don't have a meet on the weekend, but what are your focuses on this week leading up to the week of regionals?
It's more just like quality work as you get towards, like, this is like a championship bill as towards peaking. It's more about quality sessions to put on, maximizing rest, and just getting a quality session in, because now it becomes more essential for those specific race workouts. It's all just important.
It's kind of like you need to focus on the workouts that we're given and then take the rest days that we're given, use them, stretch out, do something, keep yourself limber. But it's all going to be coming down to that Saturday race.
So there's a good gauge for you guys, because obviously you're going to see every team you saw at the conference meet, at the regional meet. Some teams will be added into the regional meet. But it's also a course that you guys have seen earlier, a little longer, but a course you've seen earlier. So knowing that aspect of it, how do you go about formulating a race plan for regionals?
Lock Haven's that's pretty much like our staple course for what we look at for comparisons. It's flat, fast, and generally just an overall good course in my opinion as well. You look at it, you have higher expectations on yourself at that course because of its trueness and its flatness. So it's important. That means where you set in a specific goal that you can actually achieve there, it's more doable.
For me, it's more you look at it and take it by the horns. You go with it, you run with it, and you do the best that you can.
So let's talk about those expectations. It might be early to talk about that, but what are your expectations for regionals?
Well, we're just freshmen, so this is our first ever 10K. We upped the distance at regionals, so this will be the longest race we'll run so far in our careers. So my expectations, I would like to be 34 mids, like mid-range 34s for the 10K personally.
For probably me and Abe and Isaac, probably around like 36s, 37s.
Hey, there's a lot of good looking growth for you guys because you're a young team and you can run in the pack. David, you're running away from the pack a little bit, but that's good. Don't drop back. But to know that you're so young and can group up like that and all develop together, how much confidence does that give you guys as first years looking way into the future?
So yeah, it's all a development game, especially for us. It's exciting, and even probably for our coach as well. Like, we literally are a very young team. Like, it's there's not many teams like that. I mean, it's all about where your ceiling is as an athlete as well as a team. It's all peer development, and it literally like puts it into perspective for like 2-3 years down the road. Like, who knows where we could be in a good way. Like, it's all up from here.
For me, I could probably see us being maybe top 10, top 5 in the PSAC division, maybe like by our senior year.
It's definitely good to look up there at that. I would argue you are the youngest probably team in the conference at the very least. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time and stopping by.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere.
Pride and passion drives the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. From 55 NCAA championship teams, 294 individual national champs, and counting. Who's next? Make the PSAC yours. PSAC Proud is winning in athletics and in the classroom. Over 3,100 PSAC student athletes are honored as scholar athletes. It's a perfect mix of athletics and academics. It's time to make the PSAC yours.
While this semester will look a little different, we're taking steps to promote a safe campus environment and to help us return to normal faster. Please help us promote a safe campus by washing your hands with soap and warm water for at least 20 seconds. Use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer when soap and water are not available. Additional hand sanitizer stations are available throughout campus. Sanitation of high-touch areas around campus have been increased and advanced cleaning techniques have been implemented to limit the risk of transmission. Remember to disinfect personal items like cell phones, computers, and workspaces often. Mounties, we're all in this together.
It's all part of Mother Nature's perfect blend, the keystone of the Keystone State. Visit Potter Tioga, a 2-county scenic outdoor haven conveniently located, yet worlds apart. A place where you can kick back, unwind, and forget about the pressures of life. Disconnect and reconnect with your friends, family, or even yourself while surrounded by nature's beauty. So start planning your adventures today at visitpottertioga.com.
Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's preview the upcoming women's basketball season. As joining me at the desk is head coach Amy Senefelder. Coach, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
So we had a chance to speak a couple weeks ago about your first couple weeks looking ahead, but how have those first couple of weeks gone for you?
Pretty much as expected. I mean, they come in, they work hard every single day, which is all I can expect of them right now. We're all kind of growing together, so it's gone as expected, I'd say.
Obviously, with last year, with the group you have, not being able to have their season, that kind of weighs on a team, and some of them not being here, some of them being here. How challenging has that been from your perspective, seeing these girls deal with that?
Well, you can tell they've missed a season, and I know some of the PSAC was able to compete last year, and we were not. So you can tell they're kind of getting back in the groove of playing actual basketball compared to, you know, coming out of high school and having a senior year and then sitting out a year. You can tell they're getting back into it and remembering things and all that stuff.
This is still a really young and raw team. So what is going to, and what have you done early in the season to try and develop this team?
I try to keep it simple for all of them, whether they're, you know, the freshmen or the seniors, because we're all learning something new together. We're all learning each other and learning new offense, new defense. So I try to keep it really simple, stick to the fundamentals, and, you know, try and progress from the basics.
Yeah, it's interesting to that point that, yeah, you all are learning something new with a year off. So it's a very interesting point here, kind of a combination point here. How do you balance that of leaning on some of the players who have been here, but teaching a new system plus getting the rust of last year out?
I try to have a lot of patience, realizing that, you know, even the sophomores haven't had a year of basketball. So it's almost like 2 classes are missing an entire season of basketball. And then, you know, the juniors and seniors are playing catch up as well. So I try to have a lot of patience and realize their situation and just try and have a lot of patience.
Yeah, so looking at the team this year, has there been anyone early, I know it's still very early, but early that has stood out to you as a player who either the other players can lean on or the other players can see as a leader? Has there been anyone who stood out early for you?
Like I said, they're all working hard. I will give a shout out to Jazz Hilton. She's vocal every day in practice, and that's something that you don't see consistently a lot with any team. But in every drill, she's vocal, and I give her a lot of credit because it's not something I've necessarily asked of her, but she's stepped up, and she is that player every day in practice. So that's something off the top of my head that I can think of.
To have a player like that too, that's got to make things a little easier for you in this beginning time. Someone who's able to be kind of that voice for the team.
And they all seem to feed off of it. She kind of gets it going, but consistently, you know, she doesn't let that part of her game slip, so to speak. She's always cheering them on and helping and that sort of thing. And there are other players who step in that role as well, but that just comes to my mind.
And looking at the upcoming, with the season really just right around the corner, does the focus then shift a little bit, or does it kind of stay steady here in this preseason?
Well, we're not fortunate enough to have a outside competition scrimmage because a team had dropped. So we're kind of, that gives us more time together, time I didn't have with them, you know, early on because of my late start. So it's kind of a good and bad thing. We get more time together, kind of working out those kinks before our first game. But then we don't have the outside competition to kind of see where we're at before our first game. So it's been good and bad.
And the first game is going to be a home game, which is going to be very nice to see. What do you think? How much of a difference does that make from your point of view? That home court advantage.
Well, the home court advantage plays a role. You know, your home fans, your home administration, that type of thing. It feels better, but really, it's the lack of travel that I like a home game for. You know, they don't have to sit on the bus for however many hours, get off and play a game. They're at home. They're in their own beds. They're, you know, doing their own normal routine before a game, which helps.
So, looking at this team. Again, it's very early. So, but what are the goals and what are your expectations for this team?
Record-wise, or just
either however you see fit.
Our goals are improvement every day. So if that means, you know, we get a early season win, we want to follow that up with, you know, our best and another win. But our goals are really to improve every single day. There's a lot of statistical areas we can improve in to help ourselves in the win column. So we're focused on those areas every single day.
Well, looking forward to the season. I know you are as well. Right around the corner. Thank you so much for taking the time and stopping by.
Thank you.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere. While this semester will look a little different, we're taking steps to promote a safe campus environment and to help us return to normal faster. You'll notice students and employees wearing face masks that cover their nose and mouth in order to keep you safe. We ask that you do the same to protect your fellow Mounties. Face masks are required inside all campus buildings and should be worn when visiting locations outside of campus as well. Mounties, we're all in this together.
It's all part of Mother Nature's perfect blend, the keystone of the Keystone State. Visit Potter Tioga, a 2-county scenic outdoor haven conveniently located, yet worlds apart. A place where you can kick back, unwind, and forget about the pressures of life. Disconnect and reconnect with your friends, family, or even yourself while surrounded by nature's beauty. So start planning your adventures today at visitpottertioga.com.
That's going to do it for the show this week, folks. To stay up to date on all things Mansfield Athletics, head over to GoMounties.com. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.